What if one man could turn a simple gold hunt into a brutal fight for survival? Sisu 2022 is packed with insane action, shocking facts, and a story you won't forget. Welcome to Reviews Wala. Let's uncover the facts behind this action masterpiece. Sisu is a 2022 action thriller written and directed by Jalmari Helander and produced by Petri Jokiranta. The movie stars Jorma Tommila in the lead role, along with Aksel Hennie, Jack Doolan, Mimosa Vilamo, and Oni Tommila. The story takes place during the Lapland War, near the end of World War II, when Finland was fighting against Nazi Germany. It follows a legendary former Finnish army commando who has left the battlefield behind and now spends his days searching for gold. But after striking it rich, his journey takes a deadly turn when a ruthless group of Nazi soldiers, led by a cruel and corrupt officer, tries to steal his gold and kill him. Instead of backing down, the old soldier fights back, turning their mission into a brutal battle for survival. After finishing his movie Big Game, Jalmari Helander originally planned to make a sci fi comedy called Jerry and Ms. Universe. But when the COVID 19 pandemic hit, those plans changed and he decided to work on Sisu instead. The movie became an international project between Finland and the United States and was filmed in 2021 near the small village of Nuorgam in Finnish Lapland. Even though it had a budget of around $6.5 million, dollars, the filmmakers managed to create some incredibly intense action scenes and stunning visuals. Helander has said that the 1982 action classic First Blood, starring Sylvester Stallone, was a major inspiration for the film. He was also inspired by the real life Finnish military sniper Simo Heihe, one of the most legendary soldiers in history, whose incredible story helped shape the fearless main character. The movie's distribution was handled by different companies around the world. Sony Pictures Worldwide Acquisitions picked up the rights to release the film in most international markets outside the Nordic countries, while Lionsgate handled the release across North America. This helped Sisu reach a much bigger audience and introduce the film to action fans around the world. Sisu had its world premiere on September 9, 2022, during the popular Midnight Madness section of the Toronto International Film Festival, where it immediately grabbed attention for its over the top action and intense violence. It was later released in Finland on January 27th, 2023, and finally hit theaters across the United States on April 28, 2023. Critics and audiences loved the movie for its non-stop action, creative fight scenes, and unforgettable lead character. Because of its success, a sequel called Sisu, Road to Revenge was released on November 21, 2025, and it also received strong reviews from both critics and fans. In late 1944, Finland makes a deal with the Soviet Union. The agreement says that the fighting between them will stop, but in return, Finland has to kick its former German allies out of the country. This leads to a conflict known as the Lapland War, and the German forces aren't exactly happy about it. As they retreat from Finland, the Germans start attacking Finnish towns and destroying everything in their path, far away from all the chaos. A retired Finnish commando and gold prospector named Atami Korpi lives alone in the remote wilderness of Lapland. His only companions are his loyal dog and his horse. Atami spends his days searching for gold, digging, and panning in the middle of nowhere. Every now and then, he can see battles happening in the distance, but he doesn't really care about them. He's just focused on finding gold and living a quiet life. One day, Atami finally hits the jackpot. He discovers a huge deposit of gold and collects a serious amount of gold nuggets. With his gold packed up, he gets on his horse and starts heading toward the nearest town, with his dog following right behind him. But on the way, Atami runs into a group of about 30 German soldiers. The group is part of the Wehrmacht and is led by a ruthless SS officer named Bruno Heldorf, with his right hand man Wolf. The German soldiers are retreating from Finland and destroying villages along the way. They've also captured several Finnish women and are holding them prisoner. At first, Bruno doesn't really care about Atami. He simply lets the old man pass without bothering him. But things change when Atami runs into another group of German soldiers. These soldiers notice the gold in his saddlebags and immediately decide they want it for themselves. They get ready to kill Atami and his dog and take the gold. Big mistake. Atami suddenly fights back and completely wipes out the entire group of soldiers. He takes them down one by one with shocking speed and skill. The sound of the gunfire gets Bruno's attention, so he goes to check out what happened. When Bruno arrives, he finds all of his men dead. He also discovers one of Atami's gold nuggets, which one of the dying soldiers had grabbed. Now Bruno knows exactly what Atami is carrying. Bruno and his tank start chasing Atami. The chase eventually leads them toward a dangerous minefield. While trying to escape, Atami's horse steps on a landmine and is killed instantly. Atami gathers up his gold and realizes he has to make a risky move. He intentionally sets off another landmine and uses the explosion to escape. The German soldiers who follow him into the area quickly get blown up by the mines. Bruno then orders two of the captured Finnish women to walk ahead of the soldiers and make sure the path is safe. One of the women, Aino, bravely volunteers to take the place of another prisoner and leads the way herself. Meanwhile, Bruno finds Atami's old dog tag. From it, he discovers the truth about the mysterious gold prospector. Atami wasn't always a quiet old man living in the wilderness. He used to be a Finnish commando who fought against the Soviet Red Army during the Winter War. During the war, Atami Afi lost his family and his home. With nothing left to lose, he became a terrifying soldier who was basically a one man killing machine. He became famous among the enemy and earned the nickname Kosh, meaning the immortal. According to the stories, Atami had killed hundreds of communist soldiers and somehow survived battles that should have been impossible to survive. Bruno learns all of this, but he doesn't take the warning seriously. Instead of turning around and leaving Atami alone, he decides to keep chasing him, completely ignoring orders to stop. Atami is now badly wounded and completely exhausted. He wakes up when he hears Bruno's platoon getting closer. The German soldiers are using their dogs to track him down. Knowing the dogs can easily follow his scent, Atami comes up with a crazy plan. He hides underneath one of the German vehicles and punctures its fuel tank. Gasoline starts pouring out, covering Atami and hiding his natural scent from the tracking dogs. When the German soldiers stop to figure out where the fuel is leaking, Atami makes his move. He runs away, but the dogs are still coming after him. So Atami does something absolutely insane. He sets himself on fire to keep the dogs away from him before jumping into a nearby lake. The German soldiers wait for him to come back up. Bruno sends some men into the water to find him, but Atami has another trick up his sleeve. Underwater, he kills the soldiers and uses the air escaping from their wounds to breathe. Yeah, this guy is basically impossible to kill. Atami finally makes it to the other side of the lake, but Bruno manages to capture his dog. When Atami reaches the nearby town, he discovers that the Germans have completely destroyed it. The place is nothing but burning ruins. Atami finds a petrol station and hides there for a while. Bruno, still determined to catch him, comes up with a brutal plan. He attaches a lit stick of dynamite to Atami's dog's collar and sends the dog running toward his master. Atami sees what is happening and manages to save his dog, but the explosion knocks him out. Bruno, Wolf, and a tank driver named Schutze find Atami and decide to finish him off. They take his gold and hang him from a sign at the petrol station, leaving him there to die. But Atami refuses to die. As his body hangs from the rope, one of his wounds catches onto a piece of metal reinforcement sticking out from the sign. The metal takes some of the pressure off his neck and saves him from being strangled. However, Atami is still unconscious and hanging from the rope. A little later, two German pilots arrive in the area looking for fuel. The strong wind from their plane shakes the petrol station sign, causing it to break loose. Atami falls to the ground, and the pilots realize he's still alive. The pilot orders his engineer to kill Atami and his dog. But once again, Atami finds a way to survive. He kills the engineer and knocks the pilot unconscious. Meanwhile, Bruno knows Germany is losing the war and doesn't want to stick around and face the consequences. He decides to take the gold and escape with Wolf and Schutze. Bruno arranges for a pilot to fly them to safety, while the rest of the German platoon will travel toward Norway. But Atami has other plans. He forces the surviving pilot to fly him toward Bruno's platoon. Not long after, the German soldiers discover the crashed airplane blocking their path. The pilot has been hanged using the same rope that Wolf previously used to hang Atami. The message is clear: Atami is coming for them. As the German convoy continues moving, Atami sneaks onto the truck carrying the captured Finnish women. He kills the guards and frees the women, giving them weapons so they can fight back. Atami and Aino take control of one of the trucks. Atami then jumps onto Bruno's tank while the women open fire on the German soldiers in the other truck. Atami grabs Wolf, pulls him out of the tank, and beats him badly. Instead of killing him, Atami leaves Wolf behind with the women, who are more than ready to deal with him. Atami then goes after Bruno. Bruno shows just how ruthless he really is when he kills his own driver, should say, without hesitation before escaping in the airplane. Atami fires at the plane and seriously injures the pilot. But instead of letting the plane get away, Atami uses his pickaxe to literally smash his way onto the aircraft while it's still flying. Now it's time for the final showdown. Atami and Bruno get into a brutal hand to hand fight inside the plane. Bruno manages to overpower Atami for a moment and beats him with a static line, leaving him badly injured and unable to fight back. Bruno is about to finish him off when Atami pulls off one final trick. He quickly attaches the static line to a bomb and throws the bomb out through the plane's bomb bay. Bruno is still connected to the line, and the force pulls him straight out of the plane, sending him to his death. Atami checks the cockpit and discovers that the pilot is dead too. With nobody left to fly the plane, Atami straps himself in and prepares for the inevitable crash. The plane eventually crashes into a massive swamp. Back on the ground, Aino and the other women take control of the situation. They bring the captured German tank and the surviving wolf to a Finnish military unit, leaving the soldiers completely shocked by what they're seeing. Meanwhile, Atami somehow survives the plane crash. Even after everything he's been through, this man just refuses to die. He slowly crawls out of the swamp and finds his loyal dog waiting for him. The two reunite, and Atami finally makes his way to the war torn city of Helsinki. He's covered in blood, dirt, and bruises, but he's still alive. Atami walks into a bank carrying all the gold nuggets he fought so hard to protect. The other customers are dressed nicely and stare at him in total shock. They can't believe what they're seeing. And then, for the very first time in the entire movie, Atami finally speaks. He puts his gold nuggets on the counter and asks the bank teller to exchange them for large banknotes. His reason is simple: the paper money will be way easier to carry around than all those heavy gold nuggets. After everything he went through, Atami finally gets what he wanted from the beginning: a chance to turn his hard earned gold into a new life. Jorma Tommila as Atami Korpi. Jorma Tommila delivers a tour force performance as Atami Korpi, the silent, indomitable Finnish ex commando turned gold prospector at the heart of Sisu 2022. His casting is pivotal to the film's success, embodying the concept of Sisu, that uniquely Finnish quality of stoic resilience, grit, and unbreakable determination, in a character who communicates almost entirely through physicality, minimal dialogue, and raw presence. Tommila's background as a veteran Finnish actor with roots in theatre and earlier collaborations with director Jalmari Helander made him the ideal choice from the script's inception. Helander has repeatedly stated in interviews that he wrote the role specifically with Tommila in mind, knowing no one else could capture the quiet intensity required. Tommila's portrayal draws on a lifetime of experience in Finnish cinema, where understated masculinity and endurance are cultural hallmarks. Born in 1959, he brings a weathered authenticity to Atami, a man scarred by the Winter War and Continuation War, retreating into the Lapland wilderness only to be drawn back into violence when Nazis threaten his hard won gold. His physical transformation, gaunt frame, piercing eyes, and deliberate movements conveys decades of survival without exposition. In action sequences, Tomila performs many of his own stunts, channeling a primal ferocity that evokes comparisons to Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name or Sylvester Stallone's John Rambo, yet filtered through a distinctly Nordic lens. The actor's minimalism is the film's greatest strength. Atami speaks sparingly, saving words for the climax, forcing audiences to read his resolve in every clenched jaw and calculated strike. This approach amplifies the mythic quality of the character, turning him into an almost superhuman force of nature. Tommila's commitment extended to rigorous preparation, including training in close quarters combat and enduring harsh filming conditions in Lapland. His son, Oni Tommila, also appears in the film, adding a layer of familiar authenticity that underscores the generational trauma of wartime Finland. Critics praised Tommila for elevating a genre piece into something profound, where silence speaks volumes about national character and personal vengeance. Expanding on his fate, Tommila's earlier roles in films like Hellander's Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale showcased his ability to blend dark humor with menace, skills perfectly repurposed for Sisu's blend of ultra-violence and wry absurdity. His casting avoided Hollywood stars, preserving the film's cultural specificity. An international name might have diluted the Finnish essence. Instead, Tomila grounds the fantasy in realism. His performance required not just acting chops, but endurance, long days in freezing temperatures, covered in practical effects, blood and mud. The result is a protagonist who feels legendary yet human. His every kill a testament to Sisu rather than cartoonish invincibility. Delving deeper into the casting process, Helander's decision reflects a preference for trusted collaborators. Tomila's theater background allowed him to convey emotion physically crucial for a dialogue light script. His preparation involved studying historical Finnish soldiers and Sisu folklore, ensuring authenticity. In fight choreography, Tomila's input helped shape sequences that feel brutal and earned, not stylized for spectacle alone. This synergy between actor and director creates a seamless embodiment of the theme. One man against overwhelming odds, relying on inner strength. Tomila's restraint contrasts sharply with the film's explosive set pieces, heightening tension. His final lines land with explosive impact precisely because of the build-up. Overall, his casting was not merely practical but visionary, anchoring Sisu as a character-driven action epic. Axel Hennie as Bruno Heldorf. Axel Hennie brings chilling charisma to Obersturmführer Bruno Heldorf, the ruthless Nazi commander pursuing Atami. Casting a Norwegian actor for this role adds ironic depth given Hennie's previous portrayal of a Norwegian resistance hero in Max Manus, Man of War. This meta layer enriches the performance, with Hennie subverting audience expectations by playing the villain with nuance and menace. Heldorf is no one dimensional Nazi. He's intelligent, strategic, and increasingly unhinged as Atami's body count rises, making Hennie essential for balancing the film's dark humor and horror. Hennie's preparation involved immersing in World War II history, particularly SS officer psychology. His physicality, sharp uniform, commanding posture, projects authority, while subtle cracks reveal vulnerability under pressure. In interviews, Henny discussed the challenge of humanizing a monster without sympathizing, using body language and precise line delivery to convey arrogance, turning to desperation. His chemistry with co stars, especially Jack Doolan as Wolf, elevates group scenes, turning the Nazi platoon into a believable antagonistic force. The casting choice highlights Hellander's international co production strategy. Henny, an established star in Scandinavia, with Hollywood credits like The Martian, brings gravitas and marketability without overshadowing the Finnish lead. His accent and mannerisms feel authentic to the era's multinational SS units, adding realism. Action sequences showcase Henny's commitment, enduring practical effects, and intense confrontations. Critics noted his ability to make Heldorf both terrifying and pathetically human, especially in moments of realization about Atami's Sisu. This duality prevents the villains from becoming caricatures, sustaining tension throughout the chase. Henny's performance draws on his action background, allowing fluid integration into fight choreography. He researched Lapland campaigns, understanding the desperation of retreating German forces in 1944. This informed Heldorf's tactical decisions, making pursuits feel strategic rather than mindless. Off screen, Henny's collaboration with Helander fostered an environment of creative risk taking, evident in improvised moments of panic and rage. His casting was key to the film's tonal balance horror without preachiness, action with emotional stakes. Henny transforms what could be a stock villain into a formidable foil, his eventual downfall all the more satisfying. Jack Doolan as Wolf Jack Doolan portrays Wolf, Bruno's sadistic right hand man, injecting sleazy menace into the Nazi ranks. The British actor's casting adds diversity to the ensemble, his Cockney inflected energy, contrasting the more stoic performances. Dolan brings a volatile unpredictability to Wolf, making him a wild card who amplifies the platoon's threat level. His background in films like Cockneys vs. Zombies equipped him for the physical demands, blending humor with brutality. Dolan's Wolf is memorable for his gleeful cruelty and eventual terror, providing dark comic relief amid gore. Helander cast him for his ability to physicalize psychopathy, evident in taunting scenes and brutal executions. Dolan's commitment to practical effects, wrestling in mud, reacting to explosions, enhances immersion. His dynamic with Henny creates a believable command structure, with Wolf as the enforcer whose loyalty frays under pressure. The role required Doolan to navigate Sisu's mix of genres. He studied historical accounts of SS auxiliaries, incorporating details like scavenging desperation. This research deepened his portrayal, making Wolf a microcosm of the Nazi war machine's collapse. Casting an English speaking actor facilitated international appeal while maintaining the film's multinational Volbudu authenticity. Dolan's physical transformation, including period costume and weaponry handling, sells the era. His performance peaks in visceral confrontations with Atami, where fear overtakes bravado, humanizing the horror. Mimosa Villamo as Aino. Mimosa Villamo shines as Aino, a Finnish prisoner of the Nazis who exhibits her own brand of Sisu. Her casting brings strong female representation to a male dominated action narrative, with Villamo delivering a resilient, resourceful performance. As a Finnish actress, she authentically captures the local spirit, aiding resistance efforts and surviving atrocities. Villamo's background in drama prepared her for the emotional and physical toll. Aino's arc involves quiet defiance, turning to active participation, showcasing Villamo's range. She trained in combat basics, performing stunts that highlight agency amid captivity. Her chemistry with Tommila adds unspoken alliance, reinforcing themes of Finnish solidarity. Casting Villamo ensured cultural accuracy in depicting occupied Lapland civilians. Her scenes provide emotional counterpoint to relentless violence, grounding the spectacle. Villamo's preparation included historical study of Finnish women in World War II, informing subtle expressions of trauma and resolve. This authenticity elevates supporting roles, making Sisu more than a revenge tale. Her performance resonates with audiences, embodying quiet strength parallel to Atami's. Helander's choice prioritized talent that could match the lead's intensity without dominating screen time. Oni Tommila, as Shutse Oni Tommila, Jorma's son, plays a young SS soldier, adding generational layers. His casting leverages family dynamics for realism, with Oni bringing youthful vulnerability to a hardened role. This mirrors real wartime conscription, humanizing minor antagonists. Oni's prior work with Helander built trust for demanding scenes. His portrayal captures fear beneath indoctrination, providing nuance. Physical demands included battlefield chaos, where Oni held his own. The father son pairing on set fostered authentic tension, enhancing emotional depth. This casting choice personalizes the production, reflecting Helander's collaborative style. Supporting cast and ensemble depth, supporting ensemble, including Tatu Sinisalo, Wilhelm Enkel, Artu Kapulainen, Ilka Koivula, Max Ovaska, Pekka Hotari, Severi Saarinen, Vincent Willestrand, and Amo Melanov, fleshes out the world with authentic faces and committed performances. These actors, many Finnish, lend credibility to platoon dynamics and civilian glimpses. Casting locals for smaller roles preserved cultural texture, with each contributing to the film's relentless pace. Hellender's casting philosophy favored practical actors over stars, enabling authentic stunts and chemistry. Budget constraints Donge, 6.5 million, necessitated resourceful choices yielding high impact. The mix of experienced leads and fresh faces creates balance, with veterans guiding newcomers through grueling shoots. Casting director contributions and overall strategy. While specific casting director details highlight collaborative efforts, Hellender's hands on approach defined selections. Emphasis on physical capability, cultural fit, and tonal alignment ensured cohesion. International elements like Henny and Doolan broadened appeal, while Finnish core maintained identity. Auditions focused on chemistry reads and stunt aptitude. prioritizing endurance for Lapland locations. This strategy paid dividends in critical acclaim and cult status. Casting avoided over reliance on CGI by choosing capable performers, enhancing practical effects impact, diversity within constraints, age, nationality, gender, enriches narrative without tokenism. The result is a cast that feels lived in, elevating Sisu beyond genre tropes. Performance synergies and thematic reinforcement interplay among cast members reinforces Sisu themes. Tomila's solitude contrasts ensemble chaos, while antagonists unraveling highlights protagonist resolve. Willamo's Aino bridges divides, her resilience mirroring Atami's. Family ties Tomila's add meta resonance. Rehearsals build trust, allowing improvisation within structure. Each actor's background inform contributions, creating layered portrayals. Action sequences showcase collective physicality. Training regimens unified the cast, fostering realism in combat. Emotional beats, sparse but potent, rely on subtle acting. This synergy makes casting integral to Sisu's visceral and philosophical success. Cultural and historical casting. Considerations casting reflected Finland's Dvalborbutu history, avoiding glorification of Nazis while acknowledging occupation horrors. Finnish actors for locals ensured sensitivity. International villains underscored occupation's foreign nature. Research driven choices grounded fantasy in fact, with Simo Häyhä inspirations influencing Tomila's archetype. Hellander's vision prioritized authenticity over commercial safety, casting unknowns alongside talents. This gamble succeeded, proving star power secondary to fit. Lapland's harshness tested commitments, rewarding dedicated performers. The ensemble diversity mirrors wartime realities, enriching immersion. Technical and logistical aspects of casting pre production involved location scouts influencing actor selection for climate resilience. Stunt coordinators collaborated on auditions testing physicality. Wardrobe and makeup tests ensured period accuracy, with actors contributing input. Post casting rehearsals focused on choreography, building ensemble rhythm. Budget allocation favored practical talent over names. Optimizing resources. Challenges like language barriers, multinational cast were navigated through visual storytelling. Tomila's silence influenced others' expressive styles. Overall, logistical foresight in casting enabled ambitious execution on modest means, impact on reception, and legacy. The cast performances drove Sisu's acclaim, with Tomila earning praise for redefining silent heroes. Hennie's villainy sparked discussions on actor versatility, supporting turns, added depth, contributing to word of mouth success. Casting choices influenced sequels, maintaining core players. Legacy includes inspiring action cinema, valuing character over effects. Audience connections stem from relatable grit, amplified by authentic portrayals. Festival buzz at TIFF highlighted ensemble strength. Long term, Sisu stands as testament to thoughtful casting, elevating modest productions into phenomena. Sisu 2022 production, release, and reception production development and pre-production Sisu did not begin its life as the project Finnish writer-director Jalmari Helander expected to make next. Following his 2014 English language creature feature Big Game, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Oni Tomila, Helander had been developing a science fiction comedy titled Jerry and Ms. Universe as his subsequent directorial effort. The arrival of the COVID 19 pandemic disrupted those plans, as it did for countless productions worldwide, and rather than wait out the uncertainty surrounding a more logistically complex science fiction comedy, Helander pivoted to a leaner, more self contained story he could mount more quickly and with tighter control over scale. A World War II set action thriller that would eventually become Sisu. The project was initially known during its development and sales stages under the working title Immortal, a title that nods directly to the nickname the film's protagonist earns within its own story. Trade coverage from mid 2021 reported the project under this name before the Sisu title was settled on for release. The shift in title mattered thematically. Sisu is a Finnish word without a precise English equivalent, generally translated as a combination of stoic determination, grit, and the capacity to keep going through extreme adversity, a concept deeply embedded in Finnish cultural identity and frequently invoked in relation to the country's resistance during the Winter War and continuation war against the Soviet Union. Hellander's choice to title the film after this concept signals that the story is conceived as much as a meditation on a national character trait, as it is a straightforward action vehicle. Hellander wrote the screenplay himself, continuing his pattern of writing and directing his own material, as he had done on Big Game and his earlier breakout film, Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale. Petri Jokiranta produced the film. In terms of inspiration, Hellander has pointed to two touchstones in particular: the 1982 action film First Blood, the picture that introduced John Rambo, and the real historical figure Simo Häyhä, the Finnish military sniper credited with an extraordinarily high number of confirmed kills against the invading Red Army during the Winter War of 1939 to 1940. The fusion of these two influences, a lone, near unstoppable action protagonist in the First Blood mold, layered onto the real mythology of a quiet, implacable Finnish marksman who became legend to his enemies, forms the backbone of the film's central character, Artemi Korpi, a former commando whose brutal effectiveness earns him a fearsome nickname among Soviet troops even before the story's Nazi antagonists learn of his reputation. Sisu is structured as an international co-production between Finland and the United States, produced through Sub-Zero Film Entertainment and Good Chaos, alongside Finnish production involvement, with a budget reported at approximately 6 million euros, roughly $6.5 million at the time. That is a modest figure by the standards of American action filmmaking, and much of the film's identity, its lean 91-minute runtime, its small principal cast, its reliance on a single antagonist unit and a handful of practical set pieces, rather than sprawling battle sequences, reflects a production designed to extract maximum impact from a constrained budget rather than to compete on scale. Financing and distribution interest arrived early. In June 2021, before the film had even begun shooting under its eventual title, Sony Pictures Worldwide Acquisitions boarded the project, picking up international distribution rights outside the Nordic territories. This kind of early sales deal, struck on the strength of a script, a director's track record, and a modest but promising budget, is a common path for mid budget genre films seeking to secure their financing before cameras roll, and it indicates that industry buyers saw commercial potential in the pitch of a stoic Finnish gold prospector single handedly dispatching a platoon of retreating Nazi soldiers. Filming principal photography took place in 2021 in the far north of Finland, in the harsh, open terrain surrounding the village of Nuorgam within the municipality of Utsjoki in Finnish Lapland, Finland's northernmost inhabited region and one of its most sparsely populated and visually striking landscapes. Norgam sits close to the Norwegian border, well within the Arctic Circle, and the production made deliberate use of the region's stark fells, wide skies, and exposed tundra like terrain to stand in for the desolate, war scarred Lapland of late 1944 depicted in the story. Shooting in this environment carried its own logistical demands. Lapland's climate and remoteness mean limited daylight windows, unpredictable weather, and a landscape that offers little natural shelter or infrastructure, all factors that a production has to plan around carefully, particularly for a film built around extended outdoor chase and combat sequences. Finnish press coverage from the period documented the production's presence in the region, including reports of purpose built set pieces constructed in the fell landscape around Nyorgam, such as the ruined petrol station that features prominently in the film's later scenes. Local and national Finnish outlets also covered the shoot as a notable piece of regional filmmaking activity, with industry facing coverage from Lapland's own film promotion office highlighting Helander's return to the region for action filmmaking following his earlier work there. Finnish entertainment press also reported on at least one dramatic on-set incident during the shoot, describing a moment during production in which an actor sustained an injury requiring stitches, the kind of hazard that is not unusual on productions built around practical stunt work, hand to hand combat choreography, and effects involving blood, weapons, and physical combat rather than heavy reliance on digital effects. Consistent with Hellander's approach on his earlier films, Sisu leans on tangible, in camera staging for its violence, a stylistic choice that increases both the visceral impact of the finished film and the physical risk inherent in shooting it. The cast anchoring these sequences was compact by design. Jorma Tommila, a veteran of Finnish cinema and Helander's own past collaborator, he appeared in rare exports, took the lead role of Atami Korpi, a role built almost entirely around physical performance and screen presence rather than dialogue. Atami famously does not speak a word until the film's closing scene. Opposite him, Norwegian actor Aksel Hennie played the film's primary antagonist, the Waffen SS officer Bruno Heldorf, with British actor Jack Doolan as Heldorf's subordinate Wolf. Finnish actress Mimosa Vilamo played Aino, who emerges as the leader among the group of captive women central to the film's later chapters, and Oni Tommila, Jorma Tommila's son, and the young star of Big Game, appeared as a German soldier Schütze. The production also cast a range of Finnish supporting actors in the roles of the SS platoon and various minor characters encountered throughout Atami's journey across the ravaged landscape. Post-production on Sisu was overseen with editor Juho Virolainen cutting the film, working within the tight 91-minute runtime that Helander and his collaborators settled on for the finished picture. That runtime is itself a notable production choice. Rather than pad the story with subplot or extended character work, the finished edit keeps the narrative moving briskly through its chapters. A structural decision that reviewers would later single out as one of the film's defining strengths. Cinematographer Kjell Lagerhus's widescreen photography of the Lapland locations, capturing both the vast open desolation of the fell country and the tighter, more claustrophobic staging of the film's close quarters combat, was carried through into the final color and finishing work. And his cinematography would go on to be recognized at multiple festival and national award ceremonies following the film's release. Public detail on the specifics of Sisu's post-production pipeline, visual effects vendors, sound design teams, or a precise post-production schedule is limited in the available record. What is clear from the finished film and from Helander's stated approach is a preference for practical in-camera effects work supplemented rather than driven by digital effects, consistent with the director's history on rare exports and big game. This practical first approach shapes the post-production process itself, since it shifts more of the finishing work toward traditional editing, sound design, and color work rather than extensive digital effects compositing. Music Sisu's score was composed by Juri Seppa and Tuomas Vainole, credited jointly as the film's music team. Their work on the film received recognition on the festival and awards circuit following the film's premiere. At the 55th Sitges Film Festival in October 2022, Sisu took home the award for Best Music alongside wins for Best Film, Best Actor, Jorma Tommila, and Best Cinematography, Kjell Lagerhus, sweeping four of its major categories at the festival. The score was also nominated for Best Music at the 78th Jussi Awards, the Finnish film industry's national honors, the following year. Beyond the awards recognition, detailed public information about the specific compositional approach, instrumentation, or recording process behind the Sisu score is not extensively documented in available sources. What can be said is that the film's music forms part of a broader sound package that reviewers and audiences responded to as tonally in step with the film's blend of stark, austere landscape imagery and sudden bursts of stylized, propulsive violence, pairing the deliberate quiet of Atami's near silent journey through the wilderness with the escalating tension and release of its action sequences. Sisu had its world premiere on the 9th of September 2022 as part of the Midnight Madness program at the Toronto International Film Festival. Midnight Madness is TIFF's dedicated late night slate for genre cinema, horror, action, and boundary pushing films aimed at enthusiastic festival night crowds. And it has historically served as a launching pad for genre titles seeking word of mouth buzz and distribution attention, making it a natural fit for a film built around outsized crowd pleasing violence. The TIFF slot proved consequential. Distributor Lionsgate acquired North American distribution rights to the film from Stage 6 Films, Sony's genre focused label, shortly after its Midnight Madness debut, a deal reported in trade press in October 2022. Following on from Sony Pictures Worldwide acquisitions earlier deal for international rights outside the Nordic countries. Following its festival launch, Sisu opened theatrically in its home country of Finland on the 27th January 2023, distributed domestically through Nordisk Film in cooperation with the Finnish Film Foundation. The film then made its way to the United States, opening on the 28th of April 2023 through Lionsgate. Its US release weekend placed it alongside two other new wide releases, the sports biopic Big George Foreman and the young adult adaptation. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, giving audiences a notably varied trio of new options that weekend. Sisu opened in roughly 900 theaters in the US and Canada, with pre release tracking projecting an opening weekend in the neighborhood of $4 million. Home media following its theatrical run, Sisu moved into the broader distribution afterlife, typical of a mid budget genre acquisition title, including home entertainment and streaming availability through its distribution partners. The film later found a substantial second life as a streaming title. Industry press coverage published roughly 3 years after its original release described Sisu landing as a major streaming draw on Netflix, pointing to the film continuing to find and build its audience well beyond its initial theatrical window. This kind of extended life on streaming and home media platforms is a common trajectory for genre films that generate strong critical buzz and enthusiastic word of mouth without necessarily translating that enthusiasm into the largest possible theatrical grosses. Audiences discovering or rediscovering a title once it becomes more readily accessible outside cinemas. Reception box office Sisu's US box office debut came in below its pre release tracking projections against an initial projection of roughly $4 million dollars for its opening weekend from around 900 theaters. The film earned about $1, 4 million on its first day domestically, a figure that included $585 generated from Thursday night preview screenings. It went on to post a domestic opening weekend total of $3.3 million, dollars, which placed it eighth among films at the North American box office that weekend. A respectable but modest showing for a specialty action import competing against wider studio releases. Over its full run, Sisu accumulated $7, 3 million at the box office in the United States and Canada. Combined with $7 million earned across other international territories, the film's worldwide theatrical total reached $14.3 million against its roughly 6 million euros, about $6. 5 million production budget. While that gross did not make Sisu a major box office event, it represented a solid return relative to its modest budget and the film's ongoing profile, bolstered by strong critical notices and continued streaming exposure, contributed to its reputation as a notable sleeper success rather than a film defined primarily by its opening weekend numbers. The film's performance and critical reception were strong enough that they factored into Hellander's later decision to develop a sequel, which went into production in the years following Sisu's release. Critical response Sisu was met with strongly positive reviews upon release, a reception that stood in contrast to its comparatively modest box office performance. On the review aggregation site Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a 94% positive rating based on 181 critics' reviews with an average score of 7.6 out of 10. The site's critical consensus summary characterizes the film as narratively economical while also relentlessly violent, describing it as a well executed genre homage that satisfies fans looking for stylized action carnage. On Metacritic, which calculates a weighted average of mainstream critic reviews, Sisu scored 70 out of 100 based on 25 critics, a figure the site classifies as indicating generally favorable reviews. Audience response tracked similarly positive exit polling conducted by Posttrack during the film's US release found it earned an 80% positive score from surveyed moviegoers, with 60% saying they would definitely recommend the film to others. Individual reviews echoed this enthusiasm while frequently highlighting the same qualities. The film's lean plotting, its embrace of outsized and stylized violence, and its refusal to take itself too seriously despite dealing with heavy historical subject matter. Robert Daniels, writing for RogerEbert.com, awarded the film 3.5 out of 4 stars, praising its willingness to be gleefully over the top rather than straining for solemnity. Ross Bonham of Collider gave the film a B grade, framing its appeal around the simple, cathartic pleasure of watching a large number of Nazi soldiers meet increasingly inventive fates at the hands of a single unstoppable protagonist. Tom Shawn, reviewing for The Times, awarded the film 4 out of 5 stars, drawing a comparison to the pulpy maximalist violence of Quentin Tarantino's films, while praising the tautness and control of its storytelling, likening its narrative discipline to a Sergio Leone western. Critic Noyon Jyoti Parasara praised the film for never feeling silly despite its far-fetched premise, invoking the Hindi language colloquialism Paisa Vasool. Roughly, bang for the buck to describe the film's entertainment value relative to its modest scale. Jason Bailey, writing for the New York Times, credited Hellander's commercial instincts in blending some of the most crowd pleasing elements of the John Wick franchise with the irreverent historical revenge energy of Inglorious Bastards. The film's critical and cult reception extended beyond traditional film criticism. On the 1st August 2023, Japanese video game designer Hideo Kojima, creator of the Metal Gear series, publicly praised the film on social media, comparing its protagonist favorably to the Rambo character and expressing enthusiasm for the idea of developing a video game built around Sisu's central character. This critical enthusiasm translated into a strong showing on the festival and awards circuit. At the 55th Sitges Film Festival in October 2022, Sisu won Best Film with Jorma Tommila winning Best Actor, Kel Lagarus winning Best Cinematography, and Juri Seppa and Thomas Vainole winning Best Music, a sweep of four major awards at one of Europe's most prominent genre film festivals. In 2024, the film won Best International Film at the 51st Saturn Awards, an accolade recognizing achievement in science fiction, fantasy, and horror cinema. At Finland's own 78th Jussi Awards, Sisu received nominations for Best Film, Best Director, Jalmari Helander, and the Audience Award for Actor of the Year, Jorma Tommila, while taking home wins for Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Juho Virolainen, Best Set Design, Otso Linnalakso, and Best Makeup Design, Sala Ili Luopa, with an additional nomination for Best Costume Design, Anna Vilpunen, and Best Music. Taken together, the reviews and honors Sisu received reflect a consistent critical narrative. A film whose limited budget and small cast did not prevent it from being embraced as one of the more purely entertaining genre releases of its year, driven by a clear, confident directorial vision, a committed lead performance built almost entirely on physicality, and a willingness to fully commit to its own outlandish premise rather than undercut it with irony or restraint. He was once a man of war. His body is covered in scars to prove that he fought bravely for his country of Finland. But then something broke inside him. And now, well, now he has removed himself from combat. That war still rages. It's the last days of World War II, and the Allies are slowly pushing the Nazis out of Finland, leaving a wide stretch of scorched earth behind them. But Atami Korpi is no longer a part of that battle. He is simply a man mining for gold, far from civilization, far from people, far from war. Then, however, the unexpected happens. He finds what he's been looking for. Atami discovers a vein of the precious metal that's as long as he is tall. And suddenly, the slightly crazy and thoroughly filth covered man is very wealthy. All he has to do is cart his treasure back to what's left of the world, and he will have more money than he could have ever dreamed. There is but one problem. While riding his heavily burdened horse back toward the nearest city, Atami crosses paths with a small troop of Nazi soldiers heading the opposite direction. It didn't have to be a problem. The weary soldiers could have kept going. They could have ignored a shaggy, dirty, older man on a swayback horse. But they didn't. They decided to stop him, to drive him to his knees and steal whatever he might have. There is a Finnish word, sisu, that cannot be easily translated into English. But it means roughly a white knuckled form of courage and unimaginable determination that manifests itself when all hope is lost. When the sneering, violent Nazis jammed a gun barrel into the back of an old man's neck, little did they realize they were giving him exactly what he needed. While crushing him down, they brought back all the hatred and all the rage that once flooded his very being. They spurred his muscle memory for killing. Those fall Nazis unleashed Sisu positive elements. You could say that Atami's fight against the German soldiers is a good thing. The soldiers are brutal men, and they are transporting some six Finnish women whom they had kidnapped and repeatedly raped. Atami eventually sets those women free and gives them the means to claim revenge. But Atami's righteous actions are also very bloody ones. Sexual and romantic content Atami stands naked in a stream to wash his grime covered body. We see him fully from the rear, his unclothed body covered in scars. Later, we see a group of tattered women huddled in a German truck and find out that the soldiers have kept the kidnapped women to use as sexual slaves. Violent content, we don't see any of the suggested and apparently repeated rapes of the women mentioned above. But we do see a shirtless soldier climbing out of the truck after being with them. A different soldier sneeringly spreads one of the women's legs before being interrupted. Spoiler warning, we find out that Atami was no ordinary soldier. He was a decorated commander who snapped mentally when Russian soldiers murdered his wife. He then became a ruthless one man death squad that the Finnish army allowed to do pretty much whatever he desired. He wandered the battle area alone, butchering enemy combatants as he went. And that's exactly what happens again after the Germans beat him and drive him to his knees. We see Atami kill Nazis in scores of brutal ways. He drives a large blade through a soldier's temple. He repeatedly stabs foes in the torso and neck. He hits a soldier in the head with a landmine, completely obliterating him in slow motion. Soldiers step on landmines and get blown to chunks. Body parts again, flying in slow motion. We see corpses that have been crisped and seared from fiery explosions, as well as dead soldiers who were shot in the face and forehead. Men underwater have their throats stabbed and the air sucked out of their bubbling, slashed open necks. Several men get run over by tank treads that leave them crushed to pulp. And of course, soldiers are riddled with bullets as well as beaten with heavy objects with blood gushing results. Atami was nicknamed the Immortal during his active duty in the military, and we see why. He will not stop or give up no matter the agony. We see him shot and digging bullets out of his own flesh with the point of a knife. He stitches together gaping, gory wounds with a twisted sliver of metal and some wire. He's hung by the neck, set on fire, battered above the face with a large metal buckle, hit by the force of a thrown grenade, and slashed with a blade. His horse also steps on a landmine, blowing the animal into a bloody mist of bones and guts. Not only does blood continually seep from Atami's wounds, but there are large slashes on his face. Some wounds he stanches by packing them with dirt. Soldiers use high caliber automatic weapons and cannon shells to mow others down and rip up vehicles. A man is strapped to a bomb that falls to the ground and explodes upon impact. Atami is the sole living passenger in a cargo plane that crashes nose first into the ground. Exeter crude or profane language there is very little dialogue here. But what little we hear is littered with crudities that include more than a dozen F words and multiple uses of H, A, and EN. There's one exclamation of son of a bitch, drug and alcohol content. The Germans have a crate full of booze that we see at least one soldier drinking from. Conclusion, we live in a world filled with various shades of grey. And our movies tend to reflect those elusive perspectives about what's good or evil, what's right or wrong. Sisu isn't that kind of film, created by a Finnish writer director on a tiny budget compared to most American productions. Anyway, Sisu doesn't have even the slightest shade of nuance. It knows exactly where it wants to draw the line, where to plant its flag. You could say this movie is Tarantino like or a tale that's Rambo ish, but neither of those comparisons fully work for this bit of modern grindhouse fiction. The dialogue here is pruned back to its crudest nubbins. The one man death squad protagonist, for example, has exactly one sentence to deliver. The movie's Kill All the Tormentors storyline is indefatigably unwavering. It's carnival of carnage, ripped open flesh, and torment is brazenly unapologetic, and it's all wrapped up in a polished, subtext free package. Sisu simply aspires to be the raw and raucous entertainment choice for any group of rowdy moviegoers that wants to witness clearly defined bad guys being bloodily blotted out. Sony Pictures has sent over a new trailer for Sisu, Road to Revenge, which sees actor Jorma Tommila return as the grizzled Finnish miner who previously wiped out a group of Nazis after discovering a bunch of gold and is on another mission of revenge. This second installment now features the Soviet Union as the antagonists, with Sisu facing an army commander played by veteran actor Stephen Lang, best known for playing Miles Quaritch in James Cameron's Avatar movies and returning for Avatar Fire and Ash in December, who killed Sisu's family, an official logline from Sony Pictures. Sisu. Road to Revenge is a wall to wall cinematic action event, a sequel to the original sleeper hit SISU. Returning to the house where his family was brutally murdered during the war, the man who refuses to die, Jorma Tommila, dismantles it, loads it on a truck, and is determined to rebuild it somewhere safe in their honor. When the Red Army commander who killed his family, Stephen Lang, comes back hell-bent on finishing the job, a relentless, eye-popping cross-country chase ensues, a fight to the death, full of clever, unbelievable action set pieces. The pick is written and directed by Jalmari Helander, who was recently tagged by Millennium Media to tackle an origin Rambo movie set during the Vietnam War and has warfare actor Noah Centineo attached to play the action hero role of US Special Forces Commando John Rambo. Sisu. Road to Revenge arrives in theaters on November 21, and you can watch the aforementioned trailer below. Stephen Lang does not know why folks respond so enthusiastically when he plays villains, but he has a theory and it involves you. It's probably the eyes. Chuckles, the star of Avatar, Don't Breathe, and this weekend's Sisu, Road to Revenge. But when you are an actor, I think it's almost the wrong guy to ask about that. Because the answer is invariably going to be it's my voice, it's my eyes, it's my smile. I don't know why I'm effective, but I'm effective because you, the audience, you bring a lot to it. That might be, but Lang also offers more than most to whatever project he's working on. And in the case of Sisu 2, a sequel to the surprise Finnish action hit, the American actor's casting gave Road to Revenge an entirely different flavor. According to writer director Jalmari Helander, the suggestion of Lang came from the sequel's American distributors, Sony Pictures, but it also influenced what became the central crux of the film. I was thinking of a much younger bad guy, Helander admits when we catch up with him at Fantastic Fest, like a more physical danger in a way. But I really love the idea when I think it came from Sony. They said, what about Stephen Lang? These both being old dudes. I find that really interesting. Indeed, whereas 2021's Sisu captured the imagination of genre fans around the world by having Jorma Atomic Corpi wordlessly dismantle what seemed like the entire Third Reich in a fantasy vision of the final days of World War II in Nazi occupied Finland. His road to revenge is both a grander and more intimate affair. After all, we are told as part of Corpi's mysterious backstory in the first Sisu that he earned nicknames like the Immortal and Koshchei, a powerful sorcerer in Slavic folklore, by bedeviling the Russian Red Army for years. The reasons for this, we cryptically learn, had something to do with what the Soviets did to his family. In Sisu, Road to Revenge, we meet those Soviets, and one in particular played by Lang, as the polar opposite of Korpi. While Tomila's hero is the absolute quiet type, a conspicuous presence who has about as many lines of dialogue as Charlie Chaplin's tramp in a 1920s silent film. Lang's Igor Dragunov is a loquacious, grandstanding Red Army officer who perhaps never wanted to become the butcher of Finland. But due to the orders from his superiors, he has a long red stained history with the Korpi family. They are two sides of the same coin, Lang observes. They both persevere, they are both relentless. The difference is this: Tomila has lost so much. He's lost everything because he's lost his family. Ego's got nothing to lose and never has had anything to lose. And that's a tough position to be in. Still, it was the finer details of Lang's acting choices that attracted Helander to the casting, as well as opening up a character who is perhaps as much of an intellectual threat to Korpai as a physical one. Lang really wanted to have that mustache, and I think he looks really cool with that mustache. The writer director chuckles about his antagonist, even allowing there might be some echoes of Soviet Union despot Joseph Stalin's appearance. Stalin has much in common with Igor, the callousness, the coldness, Lang considers. The calculating cruelty of it, that's something we very much associate with Uncle Joe, you know. Even so, the actor points out the movie is escapism, and he wasn't looking to make a historical statement with the character. In fact, the mustache in part came from having just immediately played a role that required copious amounts of facial hair. And when you are removing it for a new character, you do so in stages to see what looks right. And I thought the mustache was not a bad thing. The image is further juxtaposed with glasses in Igor's quieter scenes and the hint of a hunch. There is a deep exhaustion and perhaps intellectual resignation in the performance of a Russian officer who we meet imprisoned by his own government before being sent back into Finland to finish the job with the Koshi. He's got a good bit of Dostoevsky in him, doesn't he? Lang muses. There's something very Dostoevsky about him. The Russian darkness that can be acknowledged in much of their literature is very present in the character. He's an intelligent man, but he's devoid of feelings. Those feelings have all been systematically removed. Yet it feeds into a movie that all recognize as utterly madcap. The first Sisu was also, of course, grandiose in its aesthetics and stylings. Lang says that when he saw it, he'd never heard this voice from a filmmaker before. While the movie had influences of everything from spaghetti westerns to 80s action flicks, there was a droll playfulness to how it blended that impressed the actor. That's a word I would use to describe Jalmari as a filmmaker, Lang says. His humor, his wit is both sly and dry and sly. And in Road to Revenge, the action is elevated to a near symphonic level of Looney Tunes excess. Helander tells us he actually drew on Buster Keaton, silent films, and Bugs Bunny antics while designing the set pieces of the sequel. He likewise winks to the most iconic truck chase in cinema history, a courtesy of Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've seen that truck sequence a million times, so it's definitely there, and it has the same kind of tone in a way, Helander says. And there is also a pretty clear homage to when he puts the hand grenade to the front wheel of the bike and it flips, which is directly from the third Indiana Jones film with the explosion in the air. The point of Sisu Road to Revenge, though, is to be able to take it to a more outlandish place. The director smiles, for instance, that one of his favorite bits to write involved his truck being flipped almost upside down and turning its rear cargo into a projectile missile. In many ways, it feels like the first Sisu's cartoonish violence reaching its final form, and all while Helander kept it in his uncompromising Finnish sensibilities. Still, not all notes are bad ones. The director candidly admits he got a great piece of advice on the first film when Corpy's trusted sidekick, a fluffy Bedlington Terrier, had a door left open to it for the sequel. In my original Sisu 1 script, the dog actually exploded. Helander laughs. But there were quite a few people who said that might be a mistake. So I didn't blow the dog up, and I think it was a wise decision. Between that and the casting of Lang, that's two for two in the world of Sisu. Sisu, Road to Revenge opens on Friday, Nov 21.